Namaste, and welcome to 10 Minutes with Dr. Marc Halpern. I'm Dr. Marc Halpern, and I'm honored to be sharing this sacred time with you. Today we're going to be talking about Ayurveda and healthy sex. Now I know this is a very delicate topic for a lot of people. And we're going to be talking today about sex in a lot of different ways than maybe you're used to talking about it. We're going to talk about the role of the ego and the role of the soul. We're also going to be talking about sex and its relationship to subtle energy, particularly the energy of Shukra and Ojas. And finally, we're going to be talking about the relationship between sex and the three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. So let's begin. When we talk about sex, we generally tend to think about either pleasure or love. Sex can bring about both. Sex, indeed, is one of the most pleasurable experiences a person can have. When a person comes to an orgasm, it's really a very beautiful experience. In a relationship, it opens the heart and connects two individuals together and is an expression of love. At any time a person engages in sexual activity, it's also very, very pleasurable. So what is the relationship between sex and the ego, sex and the soul? The ego's interest is in pleasure. And when the ego drives our actions, we take those actions that will pursue the highest pleasure and avoid the greatest amount of suffering. The ego drives us to pursue sex as a form of pleasure. The soul's interest in sex is in the expression of love. Love is the higher aspect of sexual engagement. When two individuals really connect together and merge their energies together and become one, that's an incredible experience of unity, an incredible experience of love. It's not that sex for pleasure or sex for love is right or wrong. They serve different purposes. The role of the ego is to keep us safe, keep us alive, keep us interested in life. Sex is a part of that. The role of the soul is to engage us in the pursuit of unity and the pursuit of harmony. Both are very important in a healthy expression of sex. How much sex to have and how often to engage in sexual activity is a complex subject. It really has to do with the subtle energy of your body. In Ayurveda, we understand that sexual energy is called Shukra. And Shukra is the subtle aspect of our sexual energy. And when it is cultivated, it's utilized not only to procreate, it's also utilized in order to build ojas and support our immune system and the stability of our body and the stability of our mind. What this means is that sexual energy is important to cultivate within ourselves. Shukra is important to cultivate within ourselves. It's a creative energy. When that energy is stored within us, it can be converted or transmuted into ojas, that which stabilizes our bodies and our minds. It strengthens our immune system and it keeps us mentally healthy. It keeps us contented in the world. Now, if we expend too much Shukra in sexual activity is an activity that will reduce our level of Shukra, then we have less available to cultivate ojas. And so we can become then depleted in ojas, or that which stabilizes the immune system, that which stabilizes the mind. In other words, overly engaging in sexual activity has health consequences from an Ayurvedic perspective. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't engage in sexual activity. It's more about engaging in the proper amount of sexual activity that's right for you. And what is the right amount of sexual activity to engage in? Well, that depends on your state of ojas. If ojas is strong, then you have a very stable mind, you have a deep level of contentment, a great capacity for love, you have a strong immune system, and you're otherwise healthy, which means you can engage in sexual activity without being concerned about its health consequences. But if your body is more fragile, if your mind is more fragile, then you need to be more careful. You need to engage less often. It doesn't mean not at all. It just means less often. Even when we engage in sexual activity out of a place of love, we do reduce the shukra within our subtle body. And so it's very important during times of illness to really preserve as much shukra as we can so that we can convert it to ojas, or the energy that will support our healing. With my patients, many times who are chronically ill, I'll ask them to disengage from all sexual activity for at least 30 days to begin with. That includes sex with a partner and also sexual activity with oneself. Sometimes with more severe illnesses, I even ask people to go for 90 days because it takes that long to rebuild the ojas of the body and support the healing of more serious conditions. If you have a more vata nature, individuals with a vata nature tend to have more fragility, especially if vata is out of balance. You know it's out of balance if you're not sleeping well. You know it's out of balance if you're more nervous, more anxious. You have to use more care and engage in less frequent sexual activity than somebody who has more ojas, because individuals with high vata tend to have low ojas or lower ojas. Individuals with high pitta also may have lower ojas. Typically, they're not as fragile as individuals of a vata nature. So more moderate amounts of sexual activity are important. Individuals with a kapha nature inherently have the greatest amount of ojas within them. In fact, ojas in many ways can be said to be a subtle form of kapha. And so if you have a more kapha nature, you have a reserve of ojas within you, which means you can engage in more sexual activity. Interestingly, individuals with a more vata nature or pitta nature are the ones more likely to engage in excessive activity than individuals with a kapha nature. Those with a kapha nature tend to have the greater capacity, but are not as passionate or as motivated to engage in sexual activity. And individuals with a vata nature, they tend to be more interested. They tend to be more actually impulsive about engaging in sexual activity, but they have to use the most care. Individuals with a pitta nature tend to be the most passionate. They also need to engage in a greater amount of care. So you see, the amount of sexual activity that we engage in has everything to do with how much ojas we have within us, also what our dosha is, what our constitution is. Are we more vata, more pitta, more kapha? And which doshas are out of balance within us? When we engage in sexual activity, we can engage in sexual activity either from an egoic perspective or a soul-oriented perspective. From an egoic perspective, it's all about the pursuit of pleasure. From a soul-oriented perspective, it's all about the expression of love. Now, when we engage in sexual activity from a soul-oriented perspective, those actions are said to be free of all karma. When we engage in sexual activity from an egoic perspective, well, those activities are going to produce some karma, some consequences to us. For more information about karma, take a look at my videos about karma, and this will help you to understand more. And for more information about ojas, take a look at my videos about prana, tejas, and ojas. And if you want to be notified of all of my newest videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll be notified of each video as soon as it's made. Many blessings to you on your continued healing journey. Namaste.